Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 256. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from NBC Sports Boston, here to break down the Week 20 NFL picks. Jacob, how are you, and how's your Week 19?
I'm doing pretty well. My Week 19 was kind of a mixed bag. I went 2-2, kind of broke even on all my units and everything of that sort. The Ravens losing really was a massive shock. But then the Chiefs came back from that deficit against the Texans. So it's kind of a weird week for NFL games in general, but I came out of it okay. How about you? How'd you do last week, and how's it going for you?
So not too well. It was a 1-3 week. Unfortunately, we had the plus 4.5 for Seattle, and they lost by 5. And as soon as they scored that touchdown at the end, I'm like, of course they're going to not score the 2-point conversion. And then Marshawn Lynch blows the assignment on the blitz, and they don't score the 2-point conversion. So we lost that. And then I don't know how anyone could have foreseen the Ravens committing 5 turnovers. 4 in meaningful action. The 5th one was garbage time, but 4 turnovers to kind of get themselves out of contention. So it was kind of painful, but hopefully we had better variance this week.
Yeah, that 2-point conversion for the Seahawks was brutal, though, because it was just, I was like, it's coming. Like, they're making the comeback. They're going to have a shot to cut this lead down. And they just couldn't do that because Marshawn Lynch missed an assignment. And, then they had the ball with 3.5 minutes left, and they decided to punt it. They never got the ball back. So that was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, it was. What do you think about that punt? To me, personally, I thought it was kind of like a loser move. And as soon as they did that, I remember seeing Wilson run off the field, and the punting team come on. I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to get the ball back. Like that was my initial thought. And to me, it's like you would rather give the ball to Aaron Rodgers than to have Russell Wilson try one more play. I would have Russell Wilson try one more play, but that's just me. What do you think?
I also would do it. It reminds me of the Patriots game against the Titans, where they decided, not to go for it on that 4th down in their own territory, and punted it, and they got the ball back on their own 1-yard line with 18 seconds left. Also, Rick, thank you for noticing. I do have a fancy new mic, and I'm loving it. So I'm glad to have that. But yeah, I don't get why the Seahawks wouldn't just give it a shot. I know they had lost yards on the previous play, and maybe if they had gained yards, they would have considered it. But at that point in the game, when the Packers defense had been having trouble containing the Seahawks and Russell Wilson's scrambling ability in that second half, I don't get why they wouldn't at least give it a shot, because it's not like it was a field goal game either. Wilson was going to have to drive probably 80 yards in 2 minutes if they got the ball back, which is doable. But I mean, we're talking about close to midfield. They should have gone for it.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the Patriots, that punting away. It was very similar. Didn't Julian Edelman's drop come on that series, or was there another drop? Was that the Edelman drop?
That was the Edelman drop. So the Malik Turner drop was very similar to the Edelman drop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Both series were ruined by a drop, which I thought was kind of weird. Obviously Malik Turner not the sort of player Julian Edelman is, but and the drops through on the drive. But I feel like the coaches, I don't know why they feel that way. If there wasn't a drop, if there was a short gain instead, would they have gone for it? I just think that they might have this negative mindset that things will go wrong, and hey, we're just going to punt it away and get the ball back and rely on our defense, which is such an old school way of thinking. Our defense will stop them. It's maybe, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, and you haven't stopped Devontae Adams all night. So why do you think that's going to be different? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. And the thing is, think about where they'd be giving the Packers the ball. It's close to field goal range, but if the Packers get the ball there up 5, they may be a little bit more conservative and just try to, work some clock, get into field goal range. Maybe they still probably would attempt to pass, but maybe you could stop that one and they'll go for the field goal. You'd still be within 8 points in that circumstance. So you'd at least have a chance. So I know field position obviously matters in the NFL, but at that point in the game, field position didn't matter. If anything, giving the Packers a shorter field possibly could have benefited the Seahawks, just because the Packers may have been more willing to settle for a field goal if it came down to that.
No, that's a great point. It's so by punting away, they're counting on the defense getting a 3-and-out, right? That's the logic behind it. So even if they turn it over on downs, why can't they still rely on the defense to get a 3-and-out? Like it's like, why would things be different? And even if they get a 3-and-out and the Packers kick a field goal, it's like, okay, it's not like they're going from 6 to 9, they're going from 5 to 8, and so you're still down one possession. So the difference is you score a touchdown not to win, but to tie. You need the 2-point conversion, obviously, but it's to tie instead of win. But like, you're still in a good spot. Obviously, if you get a touchdown, like you might win the game. So I really don't understand punting it away. It just seems like very counterintuitive and like just lacking logic in any sort of sense. The other game on Sunday I thought was kind of crazy. I don't know what your thoughts on it were when the Texans were up 24-0. Well, first of all, they were up 21-0 and they kicked that field goal. I don't know what you thought of that. And second, just blowing the lead entirely. Like when it was 24-0, did you think the game was over? So like two-part question.
I didn't think the game was quite over. I thought Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were in, trouble, obviously. I mean, they're down 24-0, but they had the firepower necessary to at least make a game of it. So I thought that was possible. But Bill O'Brien made two critical mistakes, unsurprisingly. If you've listened to this podcast, it's unsurprisingly during this contest. The first one was kicking that field goal up 21-0 to make it 24-0. Kicking the field goal makes it it's still a 3-score game. Granted, you need 3 2-point conversions in addition to 3 touchdowns to make up that deficit, but you're playing the Chiefs. Field goals aren't going to beat them and Patrick Mahomes. It was 4th and inches. If you're going to go for it on 4th down, go for it there. Now, I didn't have a problem with kicking the field goal until Bill O'Brien faked the punt. Again, I don't understand in what scenario you would fake a punt in your own territory up 17 points. Now, I know on the play it almost worked, and if Daniel Sorensen doesn't make a great open field tackle, we probably would be calling it a really good decision, or maybe not even a good decision, but one that helped swing the momentum more in favor of the Texans. But it was just such an unnecessary risk to take at that point in the game. Like, if you go for it in the Chiefs territory and don't pick up that first down, that's a little different, because then you're still up 3 scores and, it was a logical thing to do. But the fake punt just didn't make any sense to me. And that kind of, once Sorensen made that tackle, that sparked the Chiefs and gave them all the energy they needed to be like, we're going to make a game of this right now. We're going to win this one. I don't know if you thought the same thing, but I thought that was a terrible coaching decision.
I thought as soon as he kicked the field goal, the game was over. Like, I really did. Like, I'm kicking myself for not betting the Chiefs money line at that point. It just didn't dawn on me. And I was working on my 2021 and 2022 NFL mock drafts, which I wanted to have up on Monday for the championship game, because for 2022, Derek Stingley was playing, obviously. So I was working on that. So I wasn't like thinking gambling wise, but I remember at the time, I'm like, I saw him kick the field goal. I'm like that's it. It's over. Because like Patrick Mahomes is way too good to allow him an opportunity like that. Like there's not much of a difference between 21 and 24. The difference is you say that, all right, Patrick Mahomes is not going to convert 3 2-point conversions. And I feel like there's a good chance, like, I don't know what the odds are, but usually like 2-point conversions are around 50%. But like if you give Mahomes a chance, like it's obviously a lot higher than 50%. So I feel like there's a good chance he would get at least 2 or 3, if not 3 of 3. So I thought it was a big mistake, and just typical Bill O'Brien. It was funny that he would kick a field goal on 4th and 1 and go for a fake punt on 4th and 4. It just seems like just so weird to me. And that definitely swung momentum Kansas City's way. Like it was stupid, and I never understood the thought process behind like running trick plays when you have a great offense. It's like, if you have a bad offense, sure, like run all the trick plays you want because you need to gain an advantage. But when you have a quarterback like Deshaun Watson throwing to Hopkins and Fuller and Stills, who's having a good game at the time, do you really need to run a trick play like that? Like if you want to go for it, just go for it. I feel like there's a better chance of converting a 4th and 4 with Deshaun Watson throwing to Hopkins or Fuller. So I don't understand that. Bill O'Brien is a terrible head coach, and he kind of proved himself. And by the way, the Texans are not hiring a GM. which is like the least surprising thing in the world. It's like it's funny that the news came out a week ago. I missed it a week ago that the Texans would have to give up a third rounder instead of a fourth rounder for Duke Johnson, and they gave Duke Johnson one carry against the Chiefs, which is just unbelievable to me. He's so dumb.
Yeah, and Johnson clearly has more burst and is more of a weapon in the passing game than Carlos Hyde. And, Carlos Hyde had some good games this year, but like he didn't have it against the Chiefs. And that was a revenge game for Hyde, hypothetically. But Johnson should have been on the field more often than not. And to your point about the trick plays and, just go for it on offense. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. I do think there are obviously some circumstances where you just want to, fool a team. But I don't know if that was the scenario to do it in when you're up 17. There's so much more of it. The potential momentum swing is so much more negative than positive. And we saw exactly why that was right there.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, sometimes you need to do it, but they were scoring 20, they had 24 points on the Chiefs in less than a half. So it's not like they were struggling offensively at all, so it was just awful. So, and with Duke Johnson, the funny thing is like, if you were to say that Duke Johnson showed nothing this year, it could be like, okay, yeah, they just made a bad trade. But that game against the Patriots, Duke Johnson had a great game. And it's like, as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh, wow, Bill O'Brien figured it out. Like, I think we said it on this podcast. We kind of made fun of him. We're like, it took him 13 weeks to figure out that Duke Johnson was better than Carlos Hyde. And then he stopped using Duke Johnson. So, like, it made no sense at all. I just don't understand it. Saturday games, anything, like, what's your takeaway from those games?
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised by the 49ers game. They did exactly what they needed to do to beat the Vikings, and that's kind of what I had expected them to do. They bottled up Dalvin Cook and made it so Kirk Cousins had to beat them. And after halftime, Cousins couldn't get the job done. So I wasn't too surprised by that one. Obviously, the Ravens' loss was shocking. They played their worst game of the year at the worst time. The Titans weren't anything particularly impressive in that game outside Derrick Henry, who's been so insanely good this year. But I think that's got to be one of the more shocking NFL playoff results that I remember in the last 5 to 10 years. I'm sure there are other ones that if they were mentioned to me, I'd remember being surprised, but that's definitely one of the most shocking.
Yeah, Mark Sanchez beating Tom Brady was kind of like up there, So it was the same like sort of divisional round sort of deal. But yeah, the Ravens they played a terrible game. They had so many turnovers. With the I just feel like if they played that game 10 times, I feel like the Ravens will win like eight of those times. It just seems like they want to drop so many passes, and the Titans, by the way, didn't score a single point that didn't come off a turnover. I think that's important to note. All 4 of the touchdowns came off turnovers. So yeah, and with Lamar Jackson, I guess you could say, like, I don't want to say the Ravens are, they were overrated. Like, I think that's like 2020 hindsight. Like, I feel like that, with Lamar Jackson struggling though, it kind of like makes me think that like, okay, he still needs to develop as a passer. He needs better offensive weapons. And like, maybe this team, despite going 14-2, just wasn't there yet. Like maybe despite the record, they weren't as good as people thought they were. But I'm still like bullish on their future. Like if they can get good weapons around Jackson.
Yeah, I agree with that. You kind of you see the Ravens, and we look at them now. Obviously, like you said, hindsight 2020, they were probably a little bit overrated, and they need to add weapons. But if you look at the team, they really went as Lamar Jackson went the whole season. But Lamar Jackson was so good for most of the season. I mean, he's probably going to be the MVP. He was very impactful on this Ravens team and really carried the offense. He's kind of a little bit like what Russell Wilson brings to the Seahawks, except I will say the Ravens do have a better supporting cast than Russell Wilson by a long shot, with Mark Ingram healthy and Chris Carson not. But I think they're on the right track. And next year, now that Lamar has another game of playoff experience under his belt, I think they're going to come back extra hungry and willing to prove to people that this year was not a fluke and that they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I think so too. They have a good chance of winning the Super Bowl next year for sure. So we have this question from Andrew, and we can like kind of segue into the coaching news. Did Stefanski get distracted by the Browns interviews and not prepare for the 49ers? I mean, obviously Stefanski hired by the Browns. I mean, there was a bad game plan. It was like run, pass, like most of the time. It was very like uncreative. I didn't think it was a great hire. So it's not like I don't want to say he wasn't unprepared for it. I feel like definitely he prepared for the 49ers. I just think that first of all, he was outmatched, and second of all, I'm not sure he's that great of a coach. So what do you think about the hire?
I wasn't a big fan of it. I'm from New England, so I kind of thought they should hire Josh McDaniels. I know other people have different opinions on what he's been able to do, but hiring Stefanski kind of means that they're giving Paul DePodesta the power because he wanted Stefanski over Freddie Kitchens last year, according to reports. Stefanski did some good work in Minnesota. They improved offensively from how they were under John DeFilippo, but really, like, he had Dalvin Cook, and he just handed the ball to Dalvin Cook most of the time. I didn't think he was particularly creative, despite having Diggs and Thielen and some pretty good tight end weapons. So I'm not super high on him. I think he'll be an upgrade over Kitchens, but let's be honest, pretty much anything would be an upgrade over Freddie Kitchens. But I'm not sure how he's going to do off the bat. Maybe he'll surprise, but I don't think it was a particularly inspired hire.
Yeah, as if Kenny were on this podcast right now or in this video, he would say, "Well, your sister could do a better job than Freddie Kitchens." Stefanski, yeah, he's definitely an upgrade, but I'm not sure. I'm not convinced he's a great hire. I would have gone with Saleh. McDaniel's definitely better, I feel like. So and it's weird that they had Stefanski going up against Saleh, and Saleh like outcoached him by far, and they go with the guy who lost. And I feel like they only did that because, well, first of all, DePodesta wanted him, but second, I think they rushed because it seemed like they wanted a coach right now, which doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why do you need a coach now? You can hire one in a few weeks. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I was big on Saleh too throughout this whole process because he brings energy and his defense has been so good. He would have been a great fit. I probably would have gone with him over Stefanski too. Stefanski was pretty low down on my list of candidates. I thought like he'd need one more year of seasoning to get it done.
Yeah, another new head coach. So we have a question from Davin. He says, "What do you think about Joe Judge?" We discussed him a little bit last week. So I mean, he's addressing you. So
yeah, I think Joe Judge is a pretty good hire. I mean, he's learned under the best college coach of the game, and Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick. He's been under in the NFL for 4 years or 5 years, maybe. Special teams coordinators have a proven track record of if they do get a chance to be hired, they can turn into good head coaches. Just look at John Harbaugh. He was one of the best coaches in the NFL, even despite the disappointing playoff exit. Judge is going to be a good leader. He's going to be a guy who looks to get the most out of the Giants and builds a real program there. That's the vibes I got from his press conference. It sounded like that's the number one thing he learned from Saban and Belichick. So I think he has high upside. A lot of it's going to depend on what he can do with the offensive coordinator position. I know they hired a guy from the Dolphins who used to be on the Patriots staff to be defensive coordinator. But if he brings in a good offensive coordinator to work with Daniel Jones, things could turn out pretty well because I think Judge will be a good leader.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. We both like the hire for sure. And we had another hire today, offensive coordinator. So Joe Brady leaving LSU to join the Panthers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is another like I was just talking about this with some of my friends that work with me over at Ringo's Rag, the Redskins site I work for. This is another hire that has a ton of upside. But Brady just has so little experience. Like he was in the NFL for 2 years as an offensive assistant with the Saints, and then was the passing game coordinator for the LSU Tigers, and it worked out really well. But we're looking at a staff that has Matt Rule, who has 1 year of NFL experience, and then a bunch of college head coaching experience. And Joe Brady, who obviously did excellent work with Joe Burrow, but again, he doesn't have a ton of experience. So this is like going to be another boom or bust hire. I could see it working out really well depending on who they bring in at quarterback. but also it could be that, Brady may not be ready for this type of responsibility at the NFL level, or he may struggle to adapt to NFL defenses. So I don't dislike this hire, but there's some downside and there's a lot of upside.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more bearish on it than you are. Like, I don't even like it as much. Like, so one thing that Sean McVay did, and I feel like the Matt Rule hiring is sort of like McVay. Like, he's a young guy. Like, so they're trying to come up with like this new guy to like a non-retread to coach the team. What McVay did, I feel like was great, was that he hired two coordinators with lots of experience. He brought in Wade Phillips to coach the defense, and then for the offense, he had Greg Olson coaching Jared Goff, and Greg Olson had so much experience. He got Josh Freeman to the Pro Bowl. Like that. I mean, that in itself is a great career, but he also got the best out of Mark Bulger, I believe Sam Bradford, some other coaches. He took Blaine Gabbert, not Blaine Gabbert, Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles, and he had a great fantasy season. The only quarterback he ever failed with was Blaine Gabbert, and like, let's be honest, no one could ever coach Blaine Gabbert to be a good quarterback. So, I feel like that's a reason why McVay had so much success. I love McVay anyway, but like that is very smart on his part to bring in these guys with lots of experience. So I thought Matt Rule, never being in the NFL besides that 1 year with the Giants, I thought that he would bring in, a long time offensive coordinator to handle stuff, to show him the ropes around the NFL. But yeah, and then this Joe Brady guy has no NFL experience besides the 2 years with the Saints as an offensive assistant. So I think I don't like this move at all. I mean, it could work out for sure, and it has a lot of upside, like you said. But I think the floor on this is very low, and it could really blow up in the Panthers' face.
Yeah, I think that's just the whole Panthers coaching staff that they're bringing on is one of those like complete boomer bust staffs. It's either going to work really well or the wheels are going to fall off very early and everything's going to go up in flames. That's kind of how I see it right now, because they have some really good football minds, but it's the experience, and the transition from Ron Rivera is not going to be easy. Like, that's something that not enough people are focusing on. Like, the players loved Ron Rivera. And while Matt Rule seems like a good guy and a great motivator, again, from his press conferences and what he was able to do at Baylor and Temple, we don't know how that's going to translate to the NFL, especially if the players are resistant to any of his new ideas.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a question here. It says, will you guys be doing XFL picks? Well, if the XFL is successful, I will be doing XFL picks. But I learned from doing the AAF picks, or the AF, whatever, however you want to call it. I did 2 weeks of picks, and then I got tired of it. I actually forgot to do week 3. Like that's how like unenthusiastic I was about the AAF picks. So I feel like the XFL would be the same. Like I do 2 weeks of XFL picks, and then I would forget the third week, and then I just wouldn't do it again, and then the league will be canceled in 5 weeks later. So the AAF didn't even have a championship. Like we don't even know who would have won the championship. So it was a bad idea. I think the XFL is a bad idea. It already failed. I don't know why they're doing it again. But if I'm proven wrong, and if the XFL is great and people love it, then I will definitely go into it, because I'll have more reason to do it. I'll be more enthusiastic about it myself. But like, I'm not going to do something I hate. And those AAF picks, like I really struggled. Like I was really doing like digging on some players like I never heard of, and like these coaches, like Mike Martz was coaching a team, and I had to like kind of remember what Mike Martz was doing. And I was like, I remember thinking, it's like, oh, maybe Mike Martz learned something in the 15 years he's been out of the NFL. But no, he didn't, and he was still terrible. So like, it's that kind of guessing game. So I'm not going to do it, like I said, unless it's great. Are you going to look into the XFL at all?
I'll probably watch some of the games and pick a team that I like, because I did that with the AAF. I was an Atlanta fan. So, I mean, I enjoyed watching some of the games, but I'm not going to – it's too much of a crapshoot to do picks until we, see if the league's going to succeed, and also get an idea of how good the players are and who the best players in the league are, because – if you don't know that, then we're just picking blind.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the problem with it. I think there's more merit to doing CFL picks. Like that league's been around forever. We could probably figure out who the best players are just based on history. And yet I think I did that like 1 year. I think I did CFL picks 1 year, and I even grew tired of that. But I had more enthusiasm for the CFL than the AAF, and I feel like the XFL will be the same way.
My dad is going to be so bummed out because he loves the CFL, and this is like the one time he's unable to listen to this podcast live.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I would maybe do CFL picks. I'd have to reintegrate myself into that league, but that one is a little easier to figure out. As long as you know who the good quarterbacks are in that league, then you can kind of at least get a start on that.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get to our picks, NFL picks, we have this comment. Did anyone get the daily dose of Walter football? Poor evaluation of players that he can't evaluate. I don't know what evaluate is, so I'm going to ignore that comment. What's up, Walter football? And go Titans old school. So yeah, let's get into the picks. Before we do, we should say we're sponsored by DraftKings. You can go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter football. That's one word, Wall first deposit, so you can play for free with your first deposit, obviously, and subscribe or on if you're watching on YouTube or listening, as I like to do. Like I like to close the tab and listen to stuff on the background. So if you're listening or watching on YouTube, subscribe or give us the thumbs up. I heard that's a good thing to say. All right, let's get to the NFL picks. So the first game is the 305. Titans at the Chiefs. This line opened up Chiefs -7. It went up to 7.5 pretty quickly. About equal action on the game, slightly into the Chiefs, but nothing consequential. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Chiefs. I think the Titans Cinderella run is going to come to an end. What they were able to do to the Patriots and Ravens obviously is impressive on paper. In actuality, those games, the Patriots and Ravens kind of just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. There were terrible mistakes. The Patriots could not get anything going in the red zone. We already talked about the Ravens just constantly turning the ball over and not converting on 4th and 1. Very uncharacteristic games. Meanwhile, the Chiefs just dropped 51 on the Texans, coming back from 24 down. Their offense is really explosive. They scored 32 against the Titans the last time they played, and this is going to be a revenge game for the Chiefs because they did end up losing to the Titans in that game. I think that was one of my big plays that we disagreed on this season that I got right. So, which is rare that would happen. You're usually right if we disagree. So I'm just bringing that up now. But I just don't think the Titans have the firepower on offense. I mean, Derrick Henry has been so good, and the Chiefs did allow 225 rushing yards to the Titans when they last played, but they weren't fully healthy, the Chiefs, in that game. And I don't think Derrick Henry can solely carry an offense in a game that could turn into a shootout. I don't love having to pay up to 7.5. I liked it a little better when the line was at 7, but I'm still going to be on the Chiefs here. I'll probably be on them for a couple of units, probably 2 to 3. It also depends on the health of Chris Jones. If he's going to play, I may up this to 3. If he's not, I'll probably stick to 2.
Yeah, the Chiefs, the Chris Jones news kind of threw me off last week. I really like the Chiefs, and then Chris Jones was ruled out. I'm like, I like the Chiefs a little bit less. So I dropped my unit count, and I regret it. So, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. The Chiefs are definitely a lot healthier than they were last time they battled the Titans, as you said. So they were missing Eric Fisher and Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. They were both out, so they were missing 2 offensive linemen against the Titans defensive line. That's great. Granted, the Titans didn't have Jarrell Casey in that game, so that's something to note. But still, the fact that the Chiefs are going to have their entire offensive line healthy, I think is pretty important. When I saw this line was 7, I was like, oh, I'm going to bet the Chiefs for 3 units or so, maybe 4. Then it went up to 7.5 right away. I wouldn't even had a chance to write up this game. Just moved that quickly. I think the Sharps jumped on the 7 and moved it to 7.5. So I think that, I feel like this line is still maybe a little bit too low. If you look at all the metrics, my line says Chiefs should be -8. The computer says Chiefs should be -10. DVOA says Chiefs -7.5. So that's correct. So not a lot of value, but it's still a decent amount. And I think it's important to note that the Titans haven't really trailed at all in the playoffs. They were down by 6 against the Patriots, but that's it. So they were never in a position where they had to abandon the run and have Ryan Tannehill just throw a lot. And maybe they can keep it close. Maybe they can have a lead again. That's definitely possible. The Chiefs could commit lots of turnovers and screw up a lot. They did that in the first a quarter and a half against the Texans. But they have so much firepower that it's hard to imagine them not scoring almost on every possession, really. The Titans' pass defense is not that good. They're still missing one of their cornerbacks. I feel like their pass rush could be neutralized by the Chiefs' offensive line. They don't have that great of an edge rush with Cameron Wake out. And Jayon Brown might be missing this game as well, their linebacker. And the Chiefs haven't stopped tight ends all that well either. So I feel like Travis Kelce could have a big game. So I feel like the Chiefs should be able to win this game, and I think they'll win by like 10 or so. But I'm not going to bet this game heavily. It's like 2 units because I feel like Chiefs winning by 7 is a very likely outcome of this game. So TJ comments, Andy Reid is 1-8 against the Titans in his career. I mean, like when he was with the Eagles, he played them once every 4 years. And I know that he's lost to the Titans before in the playoffs as Marcus Mariota in that first round. But how many of those games did Patrick Mahomes play? Like Alex Smith lost to the Titans in the playoffs. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is the difference maker in this game. He's way too good to lose to the Titans. I feel like he's going to at least will them to victory. So if you're afraid to bet the -7.5, I will at least like maybe tease this down and take, or maybe even bet the money line. I'd be shocked if the Chiefs lose.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the Chiefs lose too. I just think that they scored 7 touchdowns on 7 possessions against the Texans. That hasn't happened since the Patriots did that in 2009. They scored 7 consecutive touchdowns in a game that was against the Titans, believe it or not. So got some history intersecting right there. But I think that if the Titans had won in more impressive fashion, like where their offense was really cooking both in the passing game and running game, and have more faith. But I think you're dead on in that if the Titans get behind and have to abandon the run, this could get out of hand quickly if Tannehill's not up to the task. And he might be up to the task. He's been much better this year than we've ever seen him before. But I think it's possible that the Chiefs could get the opening kickoff drive for a touchdown. And then if the Titans don't score after that, the Chiefs just kind of rout them a little bit and Derrick Henry can't get involved as much. So we'll see what happens, but I can't imagine the Chiefs losing this game too. But I also said that about the Ravens, so you never know.
Yeah, I feel like the Ravens, that was just a fluky loss. I mean, it was a scoreless game. The Titans, they punted on their first possession. The Ravens got the ball. They were moving the ball well down the field, if you can remember. They crossed over midfield, and then Lamar Jackson's pass to Mark Andrews was like a bit too high. Andrews still could have caught it, but it bounced off his hands and into the arms of a Titans player. And then the Titans scored a touchdown on that possession. And it was like the Ravens got 3 more turnovers in meaningful action after that. And the Titans scored on all 3 of those possessions, and they didn't score a single point that wasn't off a turnover. So I feel like the Titans team, I felt like they were underrated earlier in the year. I think they're overrated now. Like I don't think they have a chance. And if you think about it, the Chiefs were -10 against the Texans, and yet they're only -7.5 against the Titans. I feel like the Titans and the Texans are about even. Titans maybe a little bit better, but not 2.5 points better.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially since late in the season, Titans and Texans pretty much played each other evenly, and I think the Texans ended up beating the Titans in their last regular season game. So, I guess that 2.5 point swing would put better value on the Chiefs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just a shame that we can't get -7, but what can you do? This next game I like a lot more. The Packers at the 49ers at 640. This line open up 49ers -7. It's up to 7.5. Slight lean from the public on the 49ers, more so than the other game. So who do you like in this one?
I like the Packers, especially at 7.5. When I was doing my research on this, I had -7 as the number. So now that's up. It's even better. But this is a revenge game for the Packers, who were crushed 37-8 by the 49ers earlier in the year in San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers is not going to want to relive that. So I'm expecting that he'll play a very good game. I know the Packers just barely escaped against the Seahawks. Like, the Seahawks were coming roaring back. But the Packers came out of the gate really, really hot and just tried to they really hit Seattle in the mouth right away, and Seattle could not cover Devontae Adams. In this game, I think that the team's defenses are kind of similar. The 49ers are better overall. Both teams have a really good pass rush. and both teams have a solid secondary. I think the Packers secondary has been playing well lately. We saw that a bit against the Seahawks. They struggled in the second half, but that was more the Russell Wilson factor than anything else. So I just think that the Packers are going to keep this close. I just think 7.5 is way too high of a number in this circumstance. And we're really the major difference in this game between the two rosters, in my opinion, is the quarterback. I think Aaron Rodgers is a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Elsewhere, I think the teams are relatively equal. I will say the 49ers probably have advantages in more of the units than the Packers do. But I think that if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't show up, or if the Green Bay secondary plays well enough to contain his weapons, this could be a field goal game even. I just don't see it being a big 49ers blowout. So I'm going to be on the Packers here for 3 units, maybe 4. I just think that this game's going to be a lot closer than people are thinking.
Yeah, do you remember what the original line was of that Week 12 game at the Packers at the 49ers?
Yeah, it was Packers minus Packers plus 3.5. I think
that's exactly what it was, and now it's plus 7.5. So like, what's changed in the last 8 weeks, or that the line should move 7 points across the key numbers of 4, 6, and 7? Like, that's enormous. And I think people remember that the 37-8 game a little too well. If you remember that game opened up with Aaron Rodgers fumbling, return for a touchdown. The Niners had a short field, and then the Packers, I feel like, were just pressing the entire time. And they might have even given up. They were 0 for 13 on third downs. Rodgers barely cracked the 100 yards passing. But back then, the Packers weren't pass protecting well. If you recall the Chargers game, also they had similar problems. But I feel like they fixed that problem. Recently against the Seahawks, Rodgers didn't see that much pressure, and their defense has played better too. So I think Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith could cause problems for Garoppolo. And I said this last week, and it didn't really pan out because Garoppolo didn't have to do much. But Garoppolo's holding the ball too long in the pocket. Like, he's not anticipating his throws. And the Vikings couldn't make him pay because the Vikings were trailing the entire time. And maybe that happens again. But if this game's closer, Garoppolo could take a bunch of sacks, and that could lead to a fumble. And then that could lead to a Packers defensive touchdown this time. So I think this game will be close. So so the spread wise, which I talked about before, the spread is way off. I thought it'd be -6, but DVOA thinks this should be -4.5. They have the 49ers as the 5th best team in the NFL, and they have the Packers as the 10th best team in the NFL. So the difference between the 5th and the 10th best team on a neutral field shouldn't be 4.5 points. It should be a lot lower. So the spread is inflated. And I think motivational wise, this is a revenge game, as you said. So, but I also think that the 49ers could have the mentality of we beat this team already. We crushed them. We're going to beat them again very easily. So not only that, but I think Garoppolo could choke in this game. All the pressure's on the 49ers. Everyone's expecting them to win. Everyone's expecting them to win in a blowout even. I mean, the spread's 6, 7.5. I really like the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. If you were to guess, not to put you on the spot, but if you were to guess, how many times in his career has he been an underdog of 7 or more?
Oh, that's a good question. It can't be very often. I'm going to go with 2.
Wow, good guess. That's exactly what. And you know his results in those games for bonus.
I'm going to assume he covered both of them.
He covered both. So, and oddly enough, both games were against NFC West opponents on the road. The first was at Seattle in that playoff game where the Packers are leading. And then remember there was that onside kick the guy botched, and then the Seahawks recovered, and then they won the game. That was
Brandon Bostic. Yep, that was fun.
Yeah, that was the first time. So the Packers were +8 in that game. They lost by 6. The second time was last year at the Rams. It was +7.5. It was was it like a 23-20 game? It was very close. And then Ty Montgomery came out of the end zone and fumbled the ball. So the Packers had a chance to win the game. And they ended up losing. Remember, Todd Gurley took a knee and kind of pissed off everyone. Either pissed off everyone or he made everyone happy. And I bought a Todd Gurley jersey because of that, because that was my pick of the month in that game. And this is my pick of the month for the playoffs. So I love the Packers. I think they have the spread's too high. I think they're the motivational edge, and Rodgers getting 7 points. Even if this game's not close, I feel like Rodgers could get a backdoor touchdown, kind of like Russell Wilson almost did. But if that spread was 7, he would have covered. So I love the Packers.
Yeah, no, I think they're the right side too. And then this is the wacky conspiracy theory part of the game too. So it's the NFL's 100th season, right? How fitting would it be to end the 100th season with a rematch of Super Bowl I between the Chiefs and the Packers?
Right, exactly. And think about the ratings too. Like Mahomes versus Rodgers, that might be the most viewed Super Bowl of all time. Like the NFL stands to gain a lot of money for the Chiefs and the Packers winning.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, obviously just a conspiracy theory there, but maybe the game will be closer than people expect just because of the potential upside that type of Super Bowl will have. Mahomes versus Rodgers would be an awesome Super Bowl too. I'd be very, very excited for that one. Unlike last year's, even as a New England fan last year, I was like, this is going to be a bad Super Bowl. And it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, especially after last year's Super Bowl. I feel like they need something more exciting. And I always wanted to see Brady versus Rodgers. We never got to see it. We got a Manning versus Breeze, which is great. But yeah, Mahomes versus Rodgers, kind of like the old guard, giving it, like handing off the keys to the best, what I think is the best quarterback in the NFL right now is Mahomes, and he's just unbelievable. And my friend Tom from Penn State, my next door neighbor in my dorms, he says, is Jimmy G no player experience going to beat Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, I mean, maybe he beats them, but I think it's going to be a close game either way. 7.5 points. There's a lot of wiggle room there. Like, I feel like this is going to be a 3-point game either way.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling it's going to go too. I think it's going to be a really close, a really good game. So we'll definitely see what happens. I mean, maybe the 49ers get riled up if people start to doubt them, but I think the motivation just lies so much with the Packers here, prove themselves, especially where, a lot of people, us included last week, thought that the Seahawks could possibly beat them outright. So they were able to pull off not an upset per se, but, a win that not everyone expected them to get.
Yeah, the Packers looked great last week. They kind of took their foot off the gas and made it closer, but they were demolishing Seattle. And Seattle and San Francisco played 2 close games this year. So why would this game be a blowout? It could something weird could always happen. Like there could be a fumble return for a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown. Suddenly the 49ers are up 14-0. Like crazy stuff could happen for sure. But under normal circumstances, I think this is going to be a close game. TJ asking Packers played the Rams in the playoffs. If I may have misspoke. It was the first Aaron Rodgers game where he was an underdog of 7 or more was in the playoffs against Seattle a few years ago. But the second one was in the regular season against the Rams last year. So yeah, that was a regular season game. Andrew's asking, I think someone else asked us too. Can we guess the lines for the 4 possible games in the Super Bowl? So yeah, that could be the last thing we do today. All right. So Chiefs versus Packers, as we suspect it might be. What do you think the line is there?
I would probably think that the line would favor the Chiefs just because they're playing better on offense. But on a neutral field, I don't know if we'd get it up to 3. I think maybe the Chiefs by 1.5 or 2 would be what I'd go with over the Packers. What do you think there?
So according to my ratings, it would be Chiefs -4.
Okay.
But I mean that's what I would make it. So I don't know what they do. I would guess it would be -3. I think that's what the NFL would make it. Tom agrees. Chiefs -3. I would like the Chiefs in that scenario. I feel like the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. And even at the end of the regular season, in my power rankings, I wrote, I don't know if I should rank the Chiefs or the Ravens number 1. Like I like the Chiefs that much. And I think that I think the Chiefs would cover. So Chiefs versus 49ers. What would you make that?
Okay. That one might be, that would be close to a pick 'em for me. I probably would give San Francisco maybe a 1-point edge. That would be, but
really,
yeah, I think so. I think the 49ers have the better roster, but the better quarterback play belongs with the Chiefs. So I could see a case. I probably would make it a pick 'em though. I really don't see a massive difference.
Okay. I would make it, well, my numbers say it should be Chiefs -1. Um, but yeah, I could see it being either way. It would really depend on what would happen in the previous round. Like if one team blows out the other and the other game's close, like if the Chiefs beat the Titans 44-10 and the Niners squeak by the Packers 23-20, the Chiefs might be like -3 even, just because of that result. But I think if both games are close, it'll be like Chiefs -1. But I could see 49ers -1 as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking last year, I know the opening odds for the Super Bowl, I think were -1 Rams, at least what I saw. And then very quickly it shifted to -1 Patriots. So I could see it going either way if it's those two teams and just depending on the result of the game.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's pretend the Titans beat the Chiefs. So Titans versus Packers. What do you make that?
Titans versus Packers, I probably would go Packers -6. Packers -6 sounds about right to me.
Oh, wow. Okay. My numbers say it should be Packers -1.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, so if the Titans and if the Chiefs and 49ers are even, like as we're saying, it could be like -1 either way. And the spread is 7, for 7.5 for both games. Like, wouldn't the Packers and Titans be even then?
Hypothetically, I guess. But I feel like the spread on the Chiefs Titans game is off, though, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's not
Right.
6 points off. But I definitely don't think the Packers and the Titans are even. So I would definitely go Packers at least -4. I think -6 could eventually climb up there.
Yeah, I think the public would bet on Aaron Rodgers at that point. And if the Packers beat the 49ers, yeah, well, I guess both teams are pulling the upset, so they'd both be impressive. But yeah, I could see the Packers being favored by 3 or more. But my numbers say it should be only -1. Like, I don't think there's that much of a difference between the two teams. So I feel like the Packers will be inflated. And my friend Tom says Packers -6. If it's that, I'm going to be betting very heavily on the Titans. I can tell you that. What about the other one? So Titans versus 49ers. What do you make that?
Okay, I would probably make that. If I'm going -6 on the Packers, I think I'd have to go at least -9 on the 49ers over the Titans.
Okay, my numbers say it should be -4. But yeah, I mean that could be another case where the public's all over the 49ers and they inflate the number and it could be like 6 or 6.5.
I'm also very reactionary when I do my lines like this. Like, I'm just like, oh, I think it should be this. And then I look at the actual line, I'm like, that makes more sense. So just anyone out there listening to this, just know that.
Nice. Yeah, more faves is he's saying the Heritage has proposed lines up Chiefs -4.5 over the Packers, Chiefs -1 over the 49ers. So that's kind of like what we thought. And then he says, believe it or not, Titans -1 over Packers.
Wow, that's really surprising to me.
Yeah. Do they have Titans 49ers more faves? Oh, here we go. Yeah, he said it. He would say 49ers -3.5 over the Titans. So yeah, I said -4. So kind of like in the same area. But like that's what the lines would be right now. And I think this is useful information what More Faves posted, because when the line actually does come out for the game, we could see what sort of overreaction there is for the Week 20 games. Like I said before, if one team blows out another and the other one's close, they're going to inflate the team that blew out the opponent. So we could have good value on that on the other side.
Definitely. I could absolutely see, like, if somehow like the Chiefs blow out the Titans and we get a really close win in San Francisco, Green Bay, the Chiefs could be favored by as many as like 4 or 5 over the NFC teams. And that would probably be too much for me. I'd pick the NFC in that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he says no way in real life Titans will be favored of the Packers. That's probably true. Like they'll know that the public's going to bet on Aaron Rodgers very heavily. So I feel like they would favor the Packers eventually. But it's pretty close. Like I said before, my numbers say Packers -1, but I think that they would inflate that to 3. So we would have good value on the Titans. But that would involve betting against Aaron Rodgers and betting on Ryan Tannehill, which sounds stupid, but weird things happen. I mean, Ryan Tannehill just beat Lamar Jackson by like, what was it, 16 points. So, all right. So Tom, last question. What if Titans or Packers blow out their opponents this week? Yeah, that's like kind of like what we're saying. Generally, I feel like you want to fade the team that blows out the opponent this week. Like that happened. Remember the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl? The Broncos beat the Patriots pretty easily, and the Seahawks. What happened? Something else happened. The Seahawks barely beat the Niners, and the Broncos. I forget who they beat. They won in a blowout. And then the Seahawks crushed the Broncos, and even though the Broncos were favored pretty heavily.
Yeah, I can't remember what exactly happened that year, but the Broncos were favored heavily, and everyone knew, like, or a lot of people like us were like, yeah, we're going to take the Seahawks in that one easy because they're getting all these points. And then lo and behold, they win in a blowout in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, if there's a blowout this week, definitely fade the team that has the blowout because they're going to be overvalued.
Yeah, Tom will remember this. Tom has the best memory of all time. So he said, yeah, that was the Richard Sherman tipped interception. What happened in the AFC Championship? Like, who the Broncos beat that year? Do you know? Yeah, Seahawks won 43-8. Who the Broncos beat in the AFC Championship? In the meantime, Patrick asks, Aaron Rodgers, best QB left in the playoffs? Not with Mahomes. Mahomes is definitely the best. Yeah, and he's someone I'm going to be playing on DraftKings very heavily. Learning from my mistake last week, I had a lot of Russell Wilson. Mahomes is the right way to go, apparently. Yeah, they beat the Patriots. It was a blowout though, right? The Broncos beat the Patriots, or that's what I remember. Yeah, a very injured Pats team is 26-16. Yeah, okay.
That's right. Yeah. They had that year. Yeah. The Patriots were super injured, and like they were lucky to even get to the AFC Championship game that year. Like Tom Brady basically, I think, carried them on offense a bit and couldn't get past Peyton Manning and the Broncos offense.
Yeah, people were watching that game, the two games, and they thought that Denver was the most impressive team, whereas like in real life, Seattle was the best. So I think that could happen this week. You know, if one, like I said before, if one team blows out the other and the other game's close, you probably want to take the team that won closely. Obviously, that's not going to hit every time, but usually if we get an inflated number, I think that's going to be a good recipe for a good pick in the Super Bowl. But yeah, that's it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, I've got another podcast coming out on Rigo's Rag. Me and the guys over there are talking about the NFL coaching candidates. Some of the stuff we talked about here, but some different perspectives on Matt Rule and some other guys. So feel free to check that out. Got some stuff coming out on NBC Sports Boston too. We're kind of in football dead zone there right now. But we'll be updating on Tom Brady constantly this offseason. So keep a lookout for that. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. Tweet me your questions. I always say this. I'll try to remember to tweet my picks. I did last week. I was able to remember just in the nick of time, about 10 minutes before the game started. But yeah, so head on over there. I'm always down to talk football.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing where Tom Brady goes. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing if you have any news on that. Kenny says, I only listen to one podcast, the WalterFootball.com podcast. I listen to the same episodes over and over. So even our episodes, Kenny, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, Kenny will be back this week, I assume. So we'll be doing our DFS breakdown as well, hopefully on Wednesday at some point. So, yeah, I'm at WalterFootball.com. Check us out. We have updated picks throughout the week. We have week 20 fantasy football rankings for those playing on DFS. And 2020 NFL mock draft is updated. 2021 NFL mock draft is updated. And as I said before, I posted the 2022 NFL mock draft. So check that out. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for everyone for posting. And good luck in week 20.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you next week, Walt.
All right, bye.
Bye.